Hello, everybody. Here we are back with another Workers' Hammer video. I'm Eibhlin McColgan. This is Vincent David.
Hello.
Hi, Vincent.
Hi.
And we are here to talk about our battle plan for your party conference,
Yes.
the founding conference, which is on the last weekend of November in Liverpool coming up.
Yes.
So, to talk about our battle plan, let me first ask you, Vincent, what do you think about sortition?
Well,
Are you in favor now?
it's been interesting, sortition, because the whole
Yes.
point of sortition, as I understand it, was to keep left groups out of the conference.
Yes.
But it seems it has backfired a little bit, because I keep hearing leftists and other groups that have a bunch of delegates.
Yes.
Ourselves have gotten quite a few delegates.
Yes.
Myself, well, both of us included.
Yes.
So we'll both be in Liverpool in the conference hall of your party.
Yes.
And so I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to like sortition. No, just kidding. Obviously, this isn't the right way, and it's kind of arbitrary and ridiculous.
Yes. But it does seem to be quite random.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
sure the result
indeed
of getting a number of leftists as delegates was not what was intended.
Yes,
so.
It'll certainly be interesting. So I guess the goal of this video is really to lay out our battle plan and also warn of multiple pitfalls ahead. The conference, we don't know how many delegates there'll be. At first they were talking about 13,000 delegates.
Yes.
I'm sure that it'll be less than that.
Yes. I've heard 3,000.
Yeah, but we don't
Who knows?
Who knows? But probably a few thousand is possible.
Yeah.
And so there'll be probably, I expect a very tightly run show by the leadership, with maybe not a lot of opportunities to talk. However, I'm sure we'll get a good dose of confusing debate, confusing questions, all the tensions as well that's been building up, for months between Zarah Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, and between various personalities. I'm sure they will erupt in one way or another on the conference floor.
Yes.
So I guess, how can we make sense of all of this? How can we prepare ourselves for this conference?
Yes.
And so what's the most important thing? What should we do, essentially?
Yes, to navigate our way through the chaos. So shall we begin with what our battle plan is and why we want to put politics first?
Yes, let's go on with this.
Yeah. So well, what would you say to a number of people, even at this stage, have decided this is stillborn, and why should we bother to even get involved with it? It's too difficult, and it's not going to work. What would you say to that?
Well, before getting into the conference, it's true. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this has been such a mess," are sort of already, kind of cynical about it already.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I understand the sentiment. It's true that it hasn't been a great process, to say
the least.
Yeah, to say the least. Look, your party, what's interesting and why we're in it is that it brings all the British left and the British far left together at the same place. And if you thought that bringing the whole British left together was going to be like a smooth process, a beautiful process, full of, with everything going right, well, you were wrong. And I think your party, the various problems it has, its composition, the level of discussion, I think reflects where we're at in terms of the British left. So, it isn't pretty. It isn't.
It's true.
All full of young people, enthusiastic and full of energy. No, it isn't. But it is what we have, right? You have
It is what it is. I was going to say, it's obviously difficult work. I mean, the young people, if you go to one of its gatherings, all of the young people will be members of some other socialist group.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's difficult work. It apparently has no immediate gain for the groups individually or collectively. And so you get the sense from many other groups that it's quite hard. You have to kind of drag the comrades kicking and screaming to do this work. But the saying is, better to light a candle than to curse the darkness.
I love that saying, yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, I would have to add, when you do light the candle, what you see in the room, it's not pretty, it's kind of old. is kind of, people that have been through, the older people are very battle weary. They
Yeah.
have a kind of what I call political PTSD from
Yes.
many defeats, betrayals, and, they're just used to never winning anything
Yeah.
much. So it doesn't look pretty, but the left has a responsibility to try to shape this party politically, to try and have an input in what it's going to be founded on. Politics is what the left does bring to the table, and whatever the outcome, which we don't know what it will be, but it will define the political terrain for the immediate future
Yeah.
anyway.
At least for the left. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a job
Yes.
to do.
And I think your party, what it does is that it forces all the left groups to come together and forces them also to confront the crisis of the left, the problems we're having, and the reasons for our previous defeat and how to go forward. So it's hard, it's messy, it's not always interesting, and I've had my moments as well of sod this entire
Yes.
thing, I don't care.
Yes.
But
Yes.
this is wrong. Honestly, we have to get our hands dirty and try
Yes.
to make sense of all of this. And I think if we get into specifically the conference and how we view our tasks as socialists in this Partisans League, but this is obviously addressed to anyone that's a socialist and that wants your party to be a socialist working class party. I think the way we can be productive at this conference is to bring political clarity in this sort of inevitable mess that we will see most likely. To try to make sense of of what will take place. And we wrote that leaflet called Politics First. The link is in the show note, basically trying to lay that out. So our rallying cry is politics first at the conference.
Yes.
Why? What does that mean exactly?
Well, to put politics in command is, first of all, is the only way to make sense and to keep focus on why it's important for the left to be involved in this project. And throughout, I think from the very beginning, we have insisted on some very basic socialist principles that the left should come together on and fight for this. And we emphasized opposition to NATO, to, as long as Britain is part of the American empire, life will be very difficult for working people. Opposition to Zionism, which is the ideology that led to the genocide of the Palestinians. And it must be a working class party, pro-working class.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth saying this is not a full program for revolution in Britain, but they are very basic, very important issues for the British ruling class. They're also issues that all of the left groups, communists, socialists, could come together and unite around and fight for them.
Mm-hmm. So we're calling to really, when we say politics first, is to really, at the conference, in front of confused arguments, chaotic things that will certainly be throughout, put politics first. Always try to bring back the debates to what should this party stand for? What should be its main political principle? And that's really how you can make sense of the chaos. You can make sense of all the arguments. You can keep in mind what's important, what isn't, and really sort of keep that in as your guiding principle.
Yeah.
So us in multiple videos, we've explained, we think your party to succeed needs to be a working class socialist party. And that's what we should try to push as much as possible at this founding conference, essentially. We've talked in our previous video how the political statement of the party is totally empty, totally tepid, acceptable to anybody left of Starmer. We want to try to change that. And as you said, right, like we want to push points. We urge people to push position against NATO, against Zionism, for class struggle politics, for working class power. Also, against the monarchy, for trans liberation. We've developed a whole program. Really, the goal is what is to try to inject politics into the debate.
Yes.
And to try to draw some basic lines.
Yeah.
You're right that this isn't a full communist program or whatever, but what it will do is adopting these positions or even just putting them forward in the debate, it will draw a clear distinction between who wants to fight the ruling class, who really wants a party that will represent the working class and organize a struggle with them, and who doesn't. Who are the liberals, who are sort of the reformist element, those who want your party to just be a toothless party for their own careers
Yes.
versus who wants to fight. This is the distinction we want to achieve at this conference if everything goes well.
Yes.
And in terms of, I think also an important question is also the conference will we presumably adopt a leadership or elect a leadership, and we want to push for people who agree with those politics to be on this leadership as much as possible. And so it's obvious for us that Zarah Sultana has made a number of these points already. We have criticism of her. We don't think she's a revolutionary or whatever, but she has pushed for position against NATO, against Zionism, etc., for socialism. We think we should be trying to put her in the strongest leadership position at the conference, but also anybody who agrees with her ideas and defends them at the conference. That's the thing for us. Who you put in leadership depends on what they defend politically.
Yes.
Again, politics first.
The ideas that they're putting forward, because in fact, one of the points we made in adopting about Zarah Sultana's speech that she made first in Liverpool is that these are very good points, but they must become party policy. It's not enough to make them as a speech and, to have the typical thing that you have in the Labour Party, for example. I have my position, somebody else has their position, and we're all a broad church. And it's in the interest of the socialist movement to really push for those politics to become the politics of your party, because that would build it. That would mean it was founded on a very strong foundation that cuts across a lot of the division and a lot of the nonsense that goes on.
Yeah.
And we've said this before, but I think it's important to emphasize something that draws a line against the Liberals and against the Greens and makes them decamp to the Greens, strengthens your party and makes it more attractive to the working class, which is what it actually needs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah. So for us, let's say positions against NATO, against Zionism were adopted at the conference, which honestly, we'll see if it's even possible to put these forward, but we'll try.
Yes.
But let's say it happens, that would be really a victory against those liberal elements, the most conservative elements. It would at least set the basis for your party to be a real anti-establishment alternative, and really at least lay the possibility for it to win back the working class. And as we say also in our leaflet, even if we lose on these positions, it will be clarifying for the movement to have these debates, because everybody will see where everyone stands on the question of NATO, where everyone stands on the question of Zionism.
Yes.
And at least we'll have a better idea of who really wants to build a socialist working class party and who doesn't among our own ranks.
Yes. I'll give an example of that.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn has been forced for the first time to make a statement that he's against Zionism. He was forced this time around in the midst of all the chaos and everything.
The RCG got him pounding him.
One thing I liked, the RCG was pounding him. Zarah Sultana had come out against Zionism. She said it was one of the lessons of the Corbyn era. So lo and behold, Jeremy Corbyn had to choke out a statement that he was against Zionism, something he refused to do during the long Zionist witch hunt of him and of the whole left wing of Labour 10 years ago. So, it does really help force people to come out and say,
and we'll see where
they stand, see where everybody draw the line and see where people fall.
Yeah. So for us, the task is simple. Put politics first, fight for socialist politics, and fight so those that defend socialist politics be put in leadership position to try to advance towards that working class socialist party that we really need.
Yeah.
Now, that's simple enough.
Yes. Seems
However, if it was that simple, everybody else would be arguing this. No, Eibhlin?
Yes,
is that...
apparently, no. There are certain obstacles in the way of this. It would seem obvious that, every socialist and leftist understands that politics, you must put politics in command, and that structure, organizational rules, and so on are not unimportant, but they are secondary to that. But most of the left groups have focused their intention overwhelmingly on the question of democracy. So we could open this section by reminding comrades what Lenin said against the renegade Kautsky. One cannot speak of pure democracy as long as classes exist. We can only speak of class democracy.
Mhm.
So let's talk about how
Yeah.
that applies within your party, because Lenin is making the point that democracy is not something that stands higher than the class structure. It's not an abstraction. It exists in a situation where there's, class antagonisms and class conflicts. And there are various different class interests represented in your party. Are there not?
Yes, they are. But let's be concrete. Look, there
Yeah.
are multiple groups, and amongst the most prominent of them is the Democratic Socialists, who have organized the Socialist Unity Platform, right?
Yes.
Right before the conference. And these groups are pushing their main shtick, sort of more or less, is really democracy, party
Yes.
structures. We want a democratic party, and
Yes.
their main sort of battle line at the conference is to fight for organizational measures which they say favor member-led democracy.
Yes.
And their argument is basically, so we took part at a meeting of the founding
The
meeting of the
founding meeting.
Socialist Unity Platform, and
Yes.
we're listed in the group. And however, what's not clear on the website is that we did vote against their battle plan for the conference, and we had a debate
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
Basically, what they want to do is to put forward a motion, an emergency motion at the beginning of conference, sort of counterposed to the founding conference,
Yes.
and say this process has not been democratic. We need a new conference with delegates later on, in a month. I think
Yes.
they're thinking the summer of 2026 to have proper democracy. And their logic is basically, look, we can't talk about politics about program right now. There's not enough democracy.
Yes.
It's too bureaucratic. We first need to fight for space,
Yes.
democratic space. Then we can have a discussion about politics. And I don't think I'm caricaturing. I think that's pretty much their argument. And so although they kind of agree with Zarah Sultana on NATO, on
Yes.
Zionism, on all these points, that's not at all what they want
Yes.
to push at this conference.
Yes.
And they've united around the Sheffield demands, which are a set of amendments to the organizational structure. And yeah, they want to push this emergency motion of a new conference. So
Yes.
maybe we can just go. So yeah, we were at that meeting. We voted against that plan.
Yes.
Counterposed our own based on politics first. So maybe you lay out what's wrong with their plan, or what's wrong with how they approach it.
Well, what's wrong with how they approach it is that to focus on the structure, for the reason that you say, so that you can put forward politics, really assumes that the structure, that it's a level playing field. And if we get the correct structure, all wings of the party will be able to put forward what they put forward. But it's not a level playing field. Structure does not, it's like what Lenin said about democracy. Party structure and party democracy does not stand higher than the forces that are within the party. There are right-wing elements, and there's all of the socialist and communist left in Britain, more or less, within that, within your party. The socialists are not going to be a majority. They're not going to control the party. But if you just step back for a minute and think about, why is there bureaucracy? Why is the party being set up in a bureaucratic way? Why is it undemocratic? It's to exclude the left. Why is the left being excluded? Because of their ideas, because of what they bring.
You're talking about
to
the far
table.
left, right?
I mean the far left. I mean the socialists, revolutionaries, communists that are active and are an active core of your party, to be honest, but a minority. And so the structure that the Socialist Unity Platform is objecting to, of course, it's bureaucratic. Of course, the conference is stitched up. But to fight on the structure is to miss the point about the reason why those structures exist. They exist to keep the left and its socialist ideas from becoming the dominant trend. So rather than fighting on the structure, you have to fight on the politics, because as I say, the structure does not stand higher than the contending forces within the party,
Yeah. I think it's useful there was an interesting article in the Socialist Worker newspaper of the SWP. It's called Exclusive: What Your Party Insiders Are Saying. And it's basically a quotes from a set of minutes of a secret meeting of your party insiders, notably Kerry Murphy, and they've published it, which I thought was interesting. It's good that they
Yes,
did so.
it's good that they did.
And there's one quote, for example, that quite shocked me, which says, the minutes that they published says, quote, "It is not a policy conference," the conference that we'll have next week. "Its goal is to allow engagement, figure out legal obligations related to the Constitution, and agree on standing orders and rules, period," end quote. So the leadership of your party does not want politics. They don't
No.
want political debate at this conference. They want to adopt a structure so that the politics of the party can be decided behind closed doors.
Yes.
That they make the
Exactly.
choice on the policy.
Exactly.
And I find that the Democratic Socialist and the Socialist Unity Platform, by wanting to focus their entire intervention about structures and rules, are really falling into the trap set by Kerry Murphy and the Tops.
Yes. Yes.
Rather than going against them and trying to inject politics, trying to have clear political lines voted and force those leaders to adopt them, they're already falling into that trap of, we will only talk about structures, only talk about rules.
Yes, yes. They've accepted the terrain that is set by Kerry Murphy and the people, the people that are making the structure, that are making the bureaucratic rules, rather than thinking about why do those bureaucratic rules exist?
Yeah.
They exist to exclude the left.
Exactly.
Because of why? Because
they don't want revolutionary politics.
Yes, because of revolutionary politics, which is the thing that the left is supposed to bring to the table.
Yes.
And so it's a default on what they should be doing to focus on democracy. Now, we don't want to have that silly debate about how politics, between politics and structure,
that
and
structures
all that.
are political, etc. That's true.
Yeah. Of course it is, but it also matters when you sit in a room, like, for example, in the regional assembly that I have attended, and there's leftists there, and organized leftists, and then there's some other people, and everyone will talk about, yes to NATO, we're against NATO, yes, we're against Zionism, yes. And then 95% of the time is on the structure and how to make it democratic. So that's actually on the leadership's terrain. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah. The other point, I think, so the argument, what did they say? They first we need a structure, then we'll talk about program. We need the space to talk about program. And it's a wrong view of politics, because it's viewing politics as a rule book.
Yes.
And what we explain in our leaflet is that politics is really an expression of the class struggle.
Yes.
That's what it is. And a party, what's a political party? A political party is a grouping which represent a class.
Yes.
And the argument our starting point is look, there's a battle right now raging about which class your party will represent. Will it represent the working class, or will it represent the liberal middle class?
Yes.
And the way to really decide that point is through political positions, which reflect class interest. Yeah. So it's not that the structure isn't important. We have opinions about the structure.
Yes.
However, they're not the decisive element in the battle over what will your party be, actually.
Yes.
What's decisive is, what is this party going to fight for?
Yeah.
And we really urge people to always bring the debates back to this question.
Yes.
Because in the end, a structure is only useful if you have a political aim. But right now, there's competing political aims battling inside your party.
And also, if you understand the rules and structure in that way, in the sense of the class interests that are at play, that have to be fought out within the party, then you'll have to realize that no matter what gains you might make on the structure, you might win this or that, they will find a way to purge the left. There's always a way to witch hunt the left, no matter even if they adopt the most democratic structure. Let's say you take the platform of Socialist Unity Party and every measure that everyone has suggested to make your party more democratic. Let's say it all passed. Everything was agreed and adopted. Do you think they wouldn't find a structure to kick out the left, or to bureaucratically suppress the left, or whatever? I mean, that's what all history shows. There's always a way to purge the left from the Labour Party. That a Corbyn experience shows that. It wasn't particularly the rules, and no one would have fought the witch hunt against Corbyn and the Labour left on the basis of the Labour's rules. The militant tendency was witch hunted out of the Labour Party. And many times over in history, the left was witch hunted out of the trade union movement.
Yeah.
So there's always a way to do it.
They are a real worry. Like what they'll argue. I had a discussion with comrades from the CPGB, and they'll
Yeah.
argue, look, after this conference, they'll start witch hunting the left, which is
Yeah.
possible, honestly. So, what's the best defense of the left against witch hunts? Because we're against
Yes.
witch hunt. We don't
Yes.
want witch hunt, obviously,
Yes.
and we are for rules that will make
Yes.
witch hunt more difficult.
Yes.
Like, for example, the ban on dual membership. We know that this has
Yes.
been inserted there to prevent us
Yes.
and other left groups
Yes.
from being in the party. So we're against that.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
but the best defense for leftists isn't going to be found in the rule books.
No.
The best defense for leftists against witch hunts is going to be our appeal in the base of the party.
Yes.
That the base of the party views us, and I'm not talking only about the Spartacist League, I'm talking about all the communist group, the communist elements,
Yeah.
view them positively, follow them, like their appeal, and support their political position.
Yeah.
That's the best defense we have. But you can see that if your entire appeal is on rules and structure, you're really undermining your really the appeal you can have.
Yes.
If your intervention at the conference is all about holding another conference in months and details of the structure, people will just roll their eyes. But if your intervention at the conference is, we need a socialist party, here's what we think it should stand for, here's why it's important, and you have support in the base of the party for these positions, it'll be much harder for the right wing to try to witch hunt you.
Yes.
That's really your best defense. And the problem with the Socialist Unity Platform, and the reason why we oppose their battle plan, was that they are proposing to polarize the conference on really organizational question, on really,
Yes.
do we want a conference now or in 6 months, with what methods? And not that we're necessarily indifferent, but this is a polarization that will be confusing, that will be
Yes.
seen as trying sort of to wreck the current conference, and it will discredit socialist, actually.
Yes.
Thus making you easier to witch hunt.
Yes. Yes. I think it will be seen as just adding more chaos.
Yeah.
And I think people are sick of chaos as it now stands.
Yeah.
But I think you raised an interesting point. Comrades who are focusing on changing the structure are doing so in anticipation that there will be a witch hunt. Okay. But how do you fight a witch hunt? You don't fight it on the grounds of the rules. Once again, you have to fight it on the issue that you're being witch hunted
Exactly.
for, So once again, you can take everything out of the lessons of the Corbyn era. But, when Corbyn was being witch hunted because of, so-called anti-Semitism is rampant in the Labour Party and so on, he didn't fight it.
Yeah.
He did not even stand up and say, this is all because I have always supported the Palestinian struggle.
Mm-hmm.
He could have said that much. He didn't say that much. So guess what? You don't fight a witch hunt unless you actually stand up and take on the politics and fight on that basis.
Yeah.
So, the commoners are not wrong in thinking that there will be a witch hunt of the left. I think that's totally reasonable. But how are you going to fight it? You have to take up the issues that will be witch hunted on, and really, to prepare for that, strengthen the current of the left within the party that will oppose that. Prepare the ground as much as possible to oppose the witch hunt on whatever grounds it will be, which I think is probably pretty obvious.
Yeah. So politics is decisive, not the rules. And you mentioned Corbyn. We have example in our leaflet. It's like, if you look at Corbyn's rise and fall, you see that actually the rules and the structure of the Labour Party was never the decisive element.
No.
Like Corbyn rose and won 2 leadership contests despite a lot of anti-democratic rules. Like, for example, in the second leadership contest, the leadership of the Labour Party, which was controlled by the Blairites, really put up a lot of restrictions for new members, prevented them from voting.
Yeah.
He still won.
Yes.
Because Corbyn spoke really to the class aspirations of masses of people.
Yes.
He had mass support. He was able to, he struck a chord among large sections of youth and of workers.
Yeah.
And the right wing could throw whatever rules they wanted. It wasn't working.
Yeah.
However, if you fast forward 4 years, Corbyn had capitulated to the Zionist witch hunt, as you say. He had campaigned for the European Union.
Yes.
He had become just weaker and weaker because he kept conciliating the right. He kept trying to find an agreement with the right rather than fighting them.
Yes.
This really eroded his support, really, undermined him, particularly in the working class.
Yeah.
And then that's why it ended up in disaster. It's
Yeah.
not about the rules. It's not about the structure. Not that it's not important, but it isn't the decisive element. The
Yeah.
decisive element is, which class do you fight for?
Yes.
We fight for the working class, so we should go to this conference and push for politics that are going to really take the party into this direction of a working class socialist party.
Yeah.
And those who will want to make the debates only about the structure are really obscuring that struggle, and really uh, will end up, I think, just creating more confusion, which will be helpful for the top leaders.
Yes, exactly. And I do think it's worth recalling what you said about Corbyn. Corbyn capitulated on all the lines in the sand that are drawn by the British ruling class on Trident, on the European Union, on
NATO.
Zionism, on NATO, and so on. That is what, like, his movement was destroyed.
Yeah.
Not refusing to fight on those questions, which are lines in the sand for the ruling class, is what strengthens a party
Yeah.
in opposition to British imperialism. That's how you strengthen it.
Yeah.
His is the negative proof. You give in on those questions, they will crush you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
uh,
so I think politics first. If we if we weren't
yes,
clear enough, that's what you must
if you
focus
didn't,
on. And we urge the comrades of the Socialist Unity Platform, which, by the way, the Democratic Socialists, they have a political platform. They've put out one.
yes,
They put out a 10-point program, which,
yes,
okay, we might have criticism, but it does say against NATO. It does say against Zionism.
yes,
It says abolish the monarchy as well.
yes, yeah,
Against oppression, against
yes,
austerity, all these stuff. We could support it with, maybe a few
yeah.
criticism, but honestly, we could totally support it. But they are consciously deciding that this will not be our main battle horse. This will not be the main thing we push at this conference. And I think that's a profound mistake, honestly.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. They're selling themselves short politically
Yeah.
by focusing on democracy and structure,
Yeah.
because, yes, I'm sure we could vote for most of the things that are in their
Yeah. Yeah.
platform, and,
Yeah.
that's what you should be,
Yeah.
that's what they should be pushing.
And one last thing is, like, they have their Sheffield demands, which are amendments to the structure, the constitution, and the rules, which some of them we agree with, like the ban on dual membership, to remove that. We totally agree.
Yeah.
But there's certain demands that you see, if you pose the question of democracy abstractly, it doesn't work. Like, for example, there's a demand that says they want to have a demand that branch keep 50% of the funding.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm not opposed, but first of all, this is concrete. Sometimes you will have branches that are poor and branches that are rich. Maybe they want to have different funding. But also, this is totally abstracted from, for example, what if there's a branch of rich people that do right wing politics, that are
Yeah.
on the right? Like,
Yeah.
why would you want them to be well funded necessarily, rather than having this money going to the center? You see how this measure depends which politics control the party,
Yes.
which politics is dominant in the party.
Yes.
Some of these measures, they support their good. It really depends. It's concrete, right?
Yeah, I agree. We'd be neither for nor against some a priori decision on how much of the funding each branch should keep. I mean, even in the Revolutionary Party, if you had a smaller branch that had very low paid workers, for example, and another branch which had higher paid skilled workers, or,
Yeah,
or that, then you might want a higher retention rate for the lower
of
paid
course.
workers. So,
Yeah,
you know, once again, rules do not stand higher than the political
exactly,
context in which they come up.
exactly.
Um,
That's the point.
so, what about this idea that the left are just in it to further their own agenda? That they're just there as splitters and wreckers, which is,
Yeah.
for the right wing, that's part of the justification. That's how, that's why they would say we need these rules to keep the left under control, because after all, they're just splitters and wreckers.
Mm-hmm,
What would
mm-hmm.
you say to them?
Well, look, that's another point to prepare yourself for the conference. A lot of people at the conference are wary of left groups. They don't like
Yeah.
left group particularly. Not that they hate them or whatever, but they see them, as like pushing their own agenda, trying to
Mm-hmm.
grow at the expense of the movement.
Yeah.
And of course, some of it is wrong, but there are the way sometimes some left group behave does reinforce that, and there's some truth to it, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Like the SWP, for example, like again, there's a ton of honest militant in it, but the way often they conduct themselves, they hide that they're with the SWP. They try to seek organizational control,
Yes.
not in an open manner with
Yeah.
open politics, but sort of covertly. That's wrong.
Yeah.
The RCG, you know, I was at a meeting of the RCG yesterday. They've they've entered your party basically to denounce Jeremy Corbyn, which making a number of correct point against him, but they openly say, "Oh, we're not interested in building your party. We just want to split." And they're pushing this question of a split like prematurely, I think, and in a way that I think is not useful or not constructive at all. Or most people see them as just like splitter. They want to wreck this party in which many people have hope in. You know, they take elements of truth that you need a split in the workers' movement. We agree
Yes.
with this between
Yeah.
reform and revolution,
Yeah.
but then they immediately draw that conclusion that this
Yes.
split must be right now. Well, these things really fuel this conception among many people that yeah, the left are just there to wreck the thing, to push their own little organizational thing.
Yes.
And I think this can be combated again quite easily if the left pushes politics first, puts their little partisan organizational interest and puts the movement first and says, here are the politics this movement needs and here's why. This is how you can undercut that sentiment and
Yes.
show that the left groups can be actually a key factor to build that party.
Yes. I think the RCG is a good example, in fact, because I happened to go to a meeting where Zarah Sultana was speaking. This
Mm,
was in Acton, and both an RCG comrade spoke, um, and then I spoke after her in the discussion period. And the interesting thing was we raised exactly the same programmatic points that we agreed with Zarah Sultana on:
mm,
NATO, Zionism, and so on, but with exactly the opposite conclusions. The RCG comrade sort of was very critical of Zarah Sultana for being in a common party with people who don't agree with this, meaning, Jeremy Corbyn, presumably. Um, I said, well, we agree on the same points, but we have the opposite conclusion. These points that Zarah Sultana raised should become party policy. And this would be the basis on which to unite the party. It's a strong foundation on which to build the party. So we come across as people who want to be constructive in building your party while agreeing on the same politics, as opposed to pushing for, as you
yeah,
say, a premature split, because yes, Lenin said there needs to be a split with social democracy, but he quickly added that a split is not possible in in every single
no,
circumstance. In other words, you have to prepare it. And especially given the fractious state of the British left, I mean, the left needs to come to unite in a common movement, a common trend and stuff like that. Well, it sounds good. Who could be against it? Nobody's going to argue against it. But it is so far removed from the conception of all of the groups that, who see themselves building their own little niche, defending their own turf. And this is very much part of their own self-image and definition. So it's not an easy thing to overcome that,
no, no,
honestly.
not at
But
all.
we have
And
to try.
yes, we have to try. But I think the way we've intervened as well, like in your party, it hasn't been about just the Spartacus League, or these videos are always addressed to every socialist, even in other organization, because what would be great at this conference would be what we talked about, if we can put these motions against NATO, against Zionism, for class
Yeah,
struggle politics.
yeah,
And it would be much better if various left groups, although we have our differences on various
yeah,
questions, if we can come together at least on a united front on these questions and
yes,
actually collaborate together on a political basis that is not just
yes,
about what structure, but actually what politics this party should be. And we
yes,
could have much more weight and much more impact at this conference rather than just being like all divided. Like it's a bit stupid. So that's what we're obviously pushing and encouraging.
yes,
But for that, yeah, you have to put a bit your own little organizational interest to the side for 2 minutes
yes,
and try to put the movement first. And that's what we've been
yes.
really trying to do, us, the Spartacus League, and also trying to urge other groups to do as well.
Yeah, to come together on the basis of things that we actually agree on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very clear in choosing things that every socialist and communist, individually and collectively, would agree on, and fight for the things that we agree on as a starting point. It would certainly change the conception of the left, for the better
Yeah.
among the working class. As I said, it would strengthen this party. And it's just without doing that, or by not doing that, the left is really selling itself short.
Mm-hmm.
They, not fighting for the things that they dedicate their lives to.
Yeah.
They do organize all their activity. They join socialist groups for these kinds of principles, and then to not fight for them, or to make you know like to emphasize the divisions between the socialist groups, and to focus on other issues inside your party, it's really selling themselves short,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, that's true. And for us, we see, so at this conference, we want to draw these basic lines, but for us, we see this as a first step towards building really a revolutionary trend, a revolutionary current
Yes.
inside your party. Our
Yeah.
point isn't just to grow our own brand. We want to regroup all the revolutionary elements in
Yeah.
your party
Yes.
to together and develop a program together. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the difference. Like, I feel whether it is the Socialist Unity Platform or the RCG or other left groups, the SP, for example, the way they approach this, they're not approaching it by trying to build a revolutionary current in it.
No.
They're like, there's a problem in the way they are either taking for good coin the talk of member-led democracy and then be shocked that it isn't the case, or they are
Yeah.
either being sectarian towards the project, but they're not trying to cohere a current in it. And what does that mean? It means that we understand that we're a minority at the moment.
Yes.
We understand that
Yes.
we understand and accept that we do not have organizational control, and we bank on our greatest strength, which is our politics.
Yes.
That's what has been how we have viewed our task, is really trying to develop our politics and show how it can make your party successful, and keep exposing why liberal ideas, reformist ideas cannot solve the problems of the left.
Yeah.
That's really how we've articulated our intervention.
Yes, socialist ideas.
Yeah.
That's what the socialist movement brings to the table.
Yeah.
That's what we should bring to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be a mess. No surprise there. We all know that.
Yeah.
But that's
So-
what we should fight for.
What about those who, I was at Counterfire meeting, I think 2 weeks ago or something. Counterfire is a bit of a strange animal, because I feel their members will say, "Oh yeah, against NATO we agree, against Zionism we agree, against all these points we agree, but we're against making them party policy because we don't want to frighten more conservative elements. We want to we want this a broad church. We want this party to represent everyone." And that might very well be an argument we'll hear at the conference, if ever we get to put forward political positions. So what would be your response to this?
Well, the broad church argument goes back a long way in the British left. Yes. That's why Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't break with Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Because it had to be a broad church.
Yes.
So it's always an argument that benefits the right wing of the party, and the refusal to draw clear lines, political lines, on issues that actually matter is always a concession to the right. And I think that's what Counterfire is doing, because Counterfire does have revolutionary socialist politics and aims, but I think what they're saying is those have to be kind of buried.
Yeah, put to the side
Until afterwards.
Yeah, but Eibhlin, Farage is growing. He's at the door of power. He's the biggest threat. We need to get everyone on board. You're not going to start talking about NATO and the bloody Ukraine war and Palestine. Like, we need to stop Farage. That's what they would say. Obviously, I'm devil's advocate, right?
Yes,
so
you need to stop
Farage.
Yes. but you're not going to stop just saying we're against Farage is not going to distinguish your party. Everybody's against Farage. Even Starmer is against Farage, for goodness sake. That's his obsession. The Green Party is against Farage. The Lib Dems are against
The
Farage.
SNP is against Farage.
The SNP is against Farage, and your party will be against Farage. But the question is, on what basis? What basis are you going to build your party? And if you're going to oppose Farage, you need to win the working class back towards the left. You need to reclaim the mantle of being against the establishment for the organized left, and you need to build a party on that basis. So just everybody saying we're against Farage is not going to cut it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All the parties are against Reform UK, right?
Yeah.
All the parties right now, but they really oppose Farage in defense of the status quo, which is fueling him.
Yes.
And I think that's the argument as to why your party needs to be a socialist, a radical, and a working class option, is because to fight Farage, you need to fight the status quo, which is fueling it. And that's exactly what the other parties, the Green Party included, are not doing.
Yeah.
That's why drawing these lines on NATO, on Zionism are very important. They're not abstract. They're about distinguishing who wants to keep the status quo and who wants to fight it.
Exactly.
And so that's quite important when, for many reasons, but also to fight Farage. Win back those workers who are looking to Farage because they're sick of the establishment.
Yes.
Right?
And they're sick of, liberal politics that treats them with contempt. And yes, they've had it with that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one last point. I suppose I'm flogging a dead horse now. About the broad church in British politics. It's always been used to exclude the communists.
Yeah. It's always
it always embraces the right wing.
Yeah.
And, kick the left out in the name of the broad church, because you don't want to scare off the liberals. You don't want to scare off the right wing. You don't want to scare off the Starmerites, the Blairites, and so on. Yeah. So it's not to be recommended.
Yeah. So politics first. So at this conference, we need to keep that in mind. Of course, we will vote for and against organizational measures.
Yeah.
And, we will oppose some of them, and we will block with the Socialist Unity Platform on some of them.
Yes.
However, our guiding thing is going to be, we will oppose measures which obstruct the fight for socialism, and we will support organizational measures which advance the fight for socialism.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, what's important is the fight for socialism.
Yes.
So that's what we should try to push and fight for at this conference.
And
Socialist principle.
That's what we'd urge other left groups to do. Strengthen the voice of socialism and the fight for socialism within it. That is what we bring to the table.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any other point you want to make for the conference, for the delegates. You're going to be a delegate. What do you think?
Yes. I don't know. Well, we'll see what we see. But, there's also an opportunity for the left. There will be fringe events.
Oh,
the Socialist Unity Platform is organizing. We think that's very positive.
Yeah,
actually.
That is one thing we like, and we're going to help them.
We like that. We contributed towards that. And we do think that's a very good initiative. And so even if we don't agree on what to do, within your party, all of the left will be forced into one room and into a debate. So that can only be a good thing.
Yes, exactly. And we will also attend the Zarah Sultana meeting on the Friday night. So if you want to find us, we'll be there.
Yes.
We'll surely be there outside the conference, inside the conference in Liverpool. So
yes. You'll see us. I think.
For sure. If you're in Liverpool during that weekend, you'll see us.
You'll see us.
All right. So on this, click the like button. Subscribe to our video, share the videos as well. It really helps us getting more subscribers.
Follow us on social media.
Yes, everything is in the description. And that's about it. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.